What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me my two great co-hosts, Federico Perez and Ralph Hanna. And guys, it's finally May. We are finally in the final month before the World Cup is going to happen here in North America. Obviously, the next few weeks are going to be big in terms of, player selection. Obviously, the friendlies that actually just got announced for next month. They're going to play against Nicaragua in a I guess a farewell game before they head off to the United States. But obviously, there are still a lot to go for and to talk about from, the Apertura level that we just saw got officially crowned with Olimpia as the new champion. Obviously, we have Libertadores and Sudamericana and just, a lot of things to really keep out for as World Cup fever kind of, is going to hit the country soon, especially now that the league is over and, Libertadores is getting Sudamericana are about to be finishing off their group stages soon. So it's going to be a really exciting month and probably a tense month for those that are following certain players, teams, and whatnot. But, Fede, I mean, I'll go to you first on this one. Obviously, we got to talk about Olimpia being the champions officially. Obviously, the Super Classico sort of allowed them to take an advantage because of the way that it unfortunately ended with the 3-0 win awarded to Olimpia after, the disaster you would say of the crowd control and everything that happened over there with violence and whatnot. But of course, what we saw on the weekend was them officially win the Apertura very early. Actually, it was an early game on Sunday, so it allowed the team to celebrate all day instead of having to celebrate all night over there in the Defensores.
Hi, Roberto. Hi, Rob. Hi, to everyone listening to Guarani Vision. Great to be back. Glad to be back for another episode. And first of all, congrats to Olimpia fans, right? I mean, they're the ones that are still celebrating. 3 weeks before the end of the tournament, guys, they did it, right? El Decano is back, with the title winning after so long in Apertura. We've always talked about this, that Libertad had been the king of the aperturas lately, but no, the real king of the league is back. Olimpia, the team that has won it the most, and congrats to them. I mean, they really had the best team. Nobody was up to the challenge, not even the contenders, Cerro Porteño, who really lost their game against Recoleta. They really didn't have enough along the whole tournament. They lost their coach along the way also. So it's gonna be mostly about Olimpia today. They really had nobody up to them. It was only up to Olimpia to win it. We said it a couple weeks back, and even though they tied against Ameliano, it was enough because Cerro couldn't do it against Recoleta. So 3 weeks before the end of the tournament, we already have our champion, Roberto. I'm really happy for Olimpia fans. It was a weird one, right? So early, seeing Olimpia fans celebrating in front of a stadium that's not there because they went to Mariscal Lopez right in front of Olimpia Stadium, and there's pretty much nothing there right now. It's just all ground. They're thinking about building the stadium eventually this year, starting to build it. But yeah, it was a weird one right in the middle of noon on a Sunday. It was also a long holiday. It was a long weekend here, so it had that that weird feeling to it, that weird ending also because of how the Super Classico played out. I heard you guys talk about it last week. Oh, thankfully we got to talk about football today, and we don't have to talk about the hooligans.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. I think it's certainly something that people, at least from an Olympia perspective, Ralph, and I'll go to you on this one. I think, at the end of the day, they are the deserved champions. I mean, certainly, not lo only losing two games this entire way, and I think the job that Vitamina Sanchez is really doing with this team, the really consistent from the get-go, and of course, they're obviously dealing with Sudamericana at the same time, but being able to be this consistent is well deserved, especially winning it so early, like Fede had mentioned, to win it 3 weeks before the actual end of the season shows that, one, the dominance that they have, but also how no one else was really going to take advantage. Like Cerro Porteño, they tried their best, but obviously circumstances didn't allow them, and everyone else below them, Nacional, Emiliano, Libertad, and so on, they just couldn't be able to follow the pace that Olimpia was following at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. Hi to everybody watching and listening. And you're right, they're deserved champions. I mean, Olympia scored the most goals. They conceded the least goals. Like you say, they only lost twice. And the two games they did lose was a 2-1 to Trinidad and a 3-2 to Libertad. So even in those games they were scoring goals. I mean, they just yeah, they just really took very well, I think, to what Vitamino Sanchez wanted them to try and play, which at times is a very simple style. I heard one of the players talking about he made it very simple, which players always love, right? When they have a manager that makes it easy. It's not kind of a, he's not like doing some kind of new tactical schemes or styles. It is quite simple, but it's very effective. And it's interesting what Olimpia did is they maybe just got some clever signings in the right place because I think we already talked about Raúl Cáceres, how important he was. He won the league with Olimpia when, in 2011, he was just youngster and probably a sub for most of that. But he's back at 34 and he's been really important in one of the fullback roles. And then who scores the penalty that ends up being the most important one is Ali Silva. Ali Silva's come back to Olimpia, having been so important during when they won all the titles in the Garnero years. He's come back, and you just think maybe just a few of these clever signings, not the big names like Cerro did, but these very like just useful people, I think, that can play in different positions that have experience. They brought them in, and that's maybe been enough to transmit this simple style, but also at the quality you need to win a title. So they've done very well. 48 league titles now for Olimpia, and they're aiming for 50 points. They could still get 50 points in the Apertura, which is usually a very good points total.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think it's certainly a demonstration of, like I said, how good they've been. And now it's going to be interesting to see how they do it in the international competitions because, we'll obviously talk about what we saw. I guess we'll keep on the Olympia conversation and start with what we saw in the Sudamericana because obviously just literally minutes, I would say, minutes after the Olympia won that they got the official 3-0 win for against Cerro Porteño, which basically helped them get closer to winning the Apertura. They went to Rio de Janeiro to take on Vasco da Gama, and it was 3-0, but it was 3-0 to the Brazilian sides as Vasco da Gama were clear winners in here. And of course, with the draw with Barraca Central and Audax Italiano, that means all the games, all the teams are really fighting for it. It's a 1 point separation between first and fourth. Vasco, Audax, and Olimpia all have 4 points, and I think it's like 4 goals, a 4 goal difference or something like that. Or I'm just trying to double check. Yeah. So it's 3 goal differential between Vasco and Olimpia. So it's gonna be really tight, Ralph, just to see how they can, finish it off. Obviously, they play Barraca Central tomorrow at the time of recording over there in Argentina, and I think that's a must win. And I gotta say, like the way that this group is going in, I think it's not gonna be enough, even if they do get the win. Obviously, it's a huge one for Olimpia, and obviously, it's going to help them with an advantage in the group. But just the way that everything's going to close out, I think this is going to go right to the end, which of course helps Olimpia in this case that they finished both their last 2 games at home at the Defensores, and also like we had talked about, like this, they could still go for 50 points, sure, in the Apertura, but it's not the biggest priority as well because they just literally just won the Apertura.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the having won the Apertura, it takes off a lot of pressure for those final games, and that they can put everything into these last three Sudamericana matches. And that's to the point we were saying it was a very early kickoff. Part of the reason for the early kickoff was because they have to travel, they have to play their game on Wednesday against Barracas. Cerro play, I think, on Thursday this week, so they had a bit more rest, but they brought the game forward to kind of help with that. And so now it's that idea of, yeah, how do we manage these big three games? They have probably the easiest team is Baracas, but they play them away. Then of course they have the Vasco game at home, but also the Audax game at home, and that's one they'll really be targeting to win because of I think they'll feel they could take all 3 points from that one, which might be enough. It's just so close, or might be enough for at least second place, right? The thing about the Sudamericana is to get directly through, you have to win your group. If you come second, you have to play in the kind of playoffs. So it's going to be complicated, I think, for them to to manage these last few games. But we'll see. I mean, he put out a good team against Emiliano because we saw Alfaro starting, we saw Fede starting, Richard Sanchez has kind of come in and started to play more games. So it looked like that was his best team, if we can say that. I mean, it's hard because they've been rotating so much. So now it's a big question of does he try and use that same team, knowing that they got the rest of the day because they had in the morning the game? Or does he try and rotate a little bit to just to rest the players, knowing that they've also played so many games in such a short space of time because the Apertura has been crammed into this short time frame ahead of the World Cup?
Yeah, but that's what Vitamina liked, right? I mean, he liked rotating his team pretty much every game, and he even did it against Basco again, right? Giving probably the priority to the local league and try to win the next game against Ameliano. But you look at the last results. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, is this team getting cold? Is this team not as good as it was at the beginning of the semester, or why haven't they been able to win in almost a month now? I mean, their last win was against Rubio New, and then they had several draws. They lost against Libertad in a particular battle away. They lost now against Basco, a 3-0. That was probably the worst result during the whole semester. It was probably their worst game, especially in the second half when they really fell apart. And I think Vitamina has to take notice of this situation, even against Ameliano, guys. I mean, they were up against the ropes at a certain point. I mean, they had to end up drawing the game. And yeah, they celebrated the championship. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, is this team getting cold? Is this team getting tired? Are they a bit relaxed now because of what they've shown lately? Or is it maybe the opponents now seeing at this team and just like Ralph said, they play simple football. They don't really have one or two stars that we just need to go at. I mean, Olimpia, I don't think they hit the roof yet. I think this team can play a lot better. I think there are players that can give this team a lot more still. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, let's get back to it. Let's get back on the horse. Let's compete again with each other on this team and see who ends up being in the starting team. Because just like I'm saying, rotating, you never knew what the starting 11 is or was. And now you're going to have to use that starting 11 in all these games that you still have in Sudamericana, because every single one of these games is going to be vital to see if Olimpia can get into that first spot or at least fall into that second spot and still play the Sudamericana. I think they're still up for it. I think this was the game that they could lose against Pasco, and now you have the opportunity to beat the two teams that you already showed that you're better than them, Audax Italiano and Barracas. Now you just need to get the job done. It sounds easier than doable, Roberto, but I think Olimpia, and now with the crown on their shoulders and not thinking about the local league, I think they're going to get the job done, and hopefully they can still get that first spot.
So you boys think that Olimpia do get the win over there in Argentina? Fede, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very tricky one. Barracas always gets some sort of help, but I'm thinking to myself, Olympia's going to win it just by a goal. They're going to keep that clean sheet that's been probably something they can rely on most of the time, with Almeida and that good defense. I think that's the main base of this team. It was during the whole Apertura. So if they can keep that clean sheet, I think they're going to get away with it.
Ralph?
So Barracas are a bit like Recoleta, right? They're the Argentinian version of Recoleta. They're the surprise team. They've drawn every game.
Mhm.
So they've made themselves very hard to beat. I think I think Olympia should do it. I think that to Fede's point, keeping the clean sheet will be so important. But it's just a case of can they break them down, which they weren't able to do in the home game. But I think they'll get over the line with a 1-0 win, possibly a set piece goal.
Yeah, I'm thinking as well. It's just going to be a scrappy game, but just enough to win 1-0 as well. It's funny that you mentioned Recoleta, Ralph, because that's obviously the team that we're going to talk about now. And obviously, we're talking on the day of the match. So obviously, we are recording before we know any result. And obviously, as we published before, after maybe the result as well comes through. But nevertheless, obviously, a big one against Santos, the Santos of Brazil. Obviously, the Santos of Neymar. He's in Paraguay at the minute. The game being played in Pedro Juan Caballero and not at the Defensores like they had played the last two games. And that's obviously what's it called? It factors in the Brazilian fans that want to make the trip from Pedro Juan. Obviously, it's right by the border, Ralph. So it's an interesting one, but nevertheless, this is obviously a big opportunity for Recoleta. That we saw them already surprise them over there in Villa Belmiro and Santos's stadium. Obviously, they haven't lost a single game yet, but eventually it has to go their way. They need to start winning. But man, what a statement it would be. And obviously here we are talking about Santos with Neymar, that he's always in the news for something going on. He was just in the news right now for supposedly having some sort of beef with Robinho Jr., one of the obviously Robinho's kid. So he's coming into this game with kind of a dark cloud on his in his mind. And again, I don't know how he's feeling, but hey, if Recoleta can make things even more miserable for Neymar and obviously for Santos as a whole, I mean that would be huge for them to get something there. It's going to be difficult, but hey, there is a chance.
It's going to be difficult, but maybe the Recoleta took this game to the border because they wanted more Santos fans because they know they're going to turn on Neymar. Maybe it's a reverse
Yeah,
reverse trick.
I'm about to say, yeah.
But no, we've seen this before, right? In international games, I think Guarani did it a few times going to Ciudad del Este when they play Corinthians, trying to get the Brazilian crowd and make some money. What Recoleta is missing out is the win because by not winning a game, they haven't got those nice bonuses that CONMEBOL give you for winning
I
matches.
was about to say, how much is it? If I'm not mistaken, it's like
I can't remember if it's 100,000 or $300,000, but I mean it's well over their monthly wage bill, so it would be a huge thing if they could get a win. I think I don't know. I think what we're seeing though with the teams now, they will have faced Recoleta once, all of them. So I think the better teams will have maybe got them figured out. And I think with a team like Santos, with the quality they have, is going to be much harder to frustrate because they'll kind of seen what worked in the first game. I mean, we shouldn't take away from the fact Recoleta just come off beating Cerro to deny Cerro the championship, and they still put out a pretty good team for that match. Once again, Alan Wilk was scoring. He scored 2 goals. I mean, Wilk is playing so well. He's a player that you always thought was going to do very well because he was at the U20 Sudamericano. He was one of the top scorers. So you kind of felt like he was going to go on to bigger things. For whatever reason, he went to Mexico, but just the second division, and it didn't work out. But now he's playing so well, and he has that quality. You do think, well, he just needs maybe one chance up there in the northern part of Paraguay to maybe surprise Santos. But I think really for Recoleta, what's going to happen is they might have been worked out by the other teams, and today could be, or yeah, today at the time of recording could be a difficult one for them, and Santos get their revenge from that first game.
I want to see this team make history, guys, and I want to see it in that packed stadium with everybody going to see Neymar, the whole city, right? I mean, not just Pedro Juan Caballero, but the city right in front. The Brazilian city also has been waiting for Neymar. There's been a whole revolution because you don't usually get stars like him from football in a place where everybody's watching football. Everybody's consuming football. I was there not even a month ago, and jerseys all over the place. And I'm talking about Paraguay jerseys and Brazilian jerseys because that's the city, really. Everything divided into Paraguay and Brazil. Even the Paraguayans speak Portuguese there. So the Brazilian culture, you turn TV on in Pedro Juan, and you probably run into the Brasileirao, the Brazilian league, more than the Paraguayan league. That's how much. That's how strong the influence is there. But I mean, talking about this game itself, I think it could actually work in Recoleta's favor. They already played against them away. They already know what it's like to play against Neymar, so they're not going to feel the pressure or the stardom of, oh, look, there's an ex-Barcelona, an ex-PSG, one of the best players a couple of years ago in the world. Not right now. And maybe they can take advantage of that situation because the focus is going to be totally on Neymar, who's trying to make it to the World Cup. And Recoleta just needs to do their job. Have a really good game again from their goalkeeper. I think that was key in the first game they played against Santos. He's going to have a good game. But look at this team. I mean, they're on a good form right now. Over the last 5 games, they only lost one guy. So they've been able to compete in both levels in the Sudamericana, and they just beat Cerro Porteño, one of the biggest teams in the league, in the Paraguayan league. So I think they're motivated. I think they're feeling good about themselves. I love Alan Wilk. He's been one of my favorite players so far during this semester, but there are several players that I want to see stand out in this game of Recoleta against Santos. I'm going to turn on the TV, but not to see Neymar. I'm going to turn the TV to see Recoleta beat Neymar Santos.
What's it called? Nelson Ferreira is gonna have a big game in this one, Ralph. What do you say about this one?
Well, I'd love to be as positive as Fede could be. I mean, yeah, we could say the best winger on the pitch will be Aldo Gonzalez. Who knows, right? But I feel that Santos will win, but maybe like only by one goal. But also the thing we haven't talked about, which we've been teasing for a few weeks, is this could be the game that the president comes on for
That's right. Yeah.
Recoleta. I think he might want to come on at the very last minute and get that appearance and be the oldest player ever in the Sudamericana. So watch out for that moment. I mean, keep watching the whole game, even if it does become it's not a tight game anymore. Watch until the end because we might see some history.
Yeah. So you say Santos do it, Fede?
I'm gonna go with the draw, guys. I think Recoleta can do it. I just think, with the whole atmosphere and what I saw in that first game, they suffered way too much. So I think it's gonna end up being a draw, and they'll have to wait for their first win in this group. A draw is not that bad for Recoleta playing against probably the strongest side in this group, also. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna go with a 1-0.
Got Lorenzo in there as well. So obviously, the fact that they're taking at this point, 3 points from 3 games is not a bad thing at all, especially for Recoleta's resources. That being said, I also think it's a nil-nil draw. I think it's gonna be a tight one. I don't trust this Santos side as a whole. So that's what I'm going at. The other team that's also playing on the same day, today, obviously, is Rosario as Libertad taking on Rosario Central over there in Rosario. I mean, they need some sort of confidence boost, Fede. It's not been the best of years for Libertad, especially now that Olimpia won the title and they haven't won a game yet in the Libertadores. I it's hard for them to really recover. Obviously, the only sort of chance is when we see that Central falling off. And obviously it's good that they play them on the final day, and I think that's ultimately going to probably decide who goes to the Sudamericana because I think the round of 16 is out of reach. But if Libertad can get something in Rosario, I think that would help boost confidence. But I genuinely am not that optimistic on this side, especially given the form that Libertad is in and the form that Rosario is in as well.
Yeah, I would love for this team to come back to win at least one big game during this whole semester, especially for their fans, right? They barely had anything to celebrate. They just lost their coach Chiqui Arce. They changed the managing, and it kind of looked better right now. I think they picked up themselves in some sort of way, and I think they're starting to find their pieces again, especially in the offense with Lorenzo Melgarejo starting to come back. He's been probably their best player, during the whole semester. So if he's in there, I think Libertad can put up a fight. I don't think they can win in Rosario, especially after what I saw between these two teams here in Asunción. I think Rosario Central is going to win this one, but I do think Libertad's going to be more in the game than they were in that match in Asunción. I think they're going to be more competitive, and we're just going to see a 1-0 win from Rosario Central. And hopefully, in those last games, some way Libertad can gain some points and make it to the Sudamericana. But they're totally out of Libertadores. I don't even want to watch their games anymore. It has looked really bad for them during this whole year.
Yeah, I mean, Libertad with the changing coach, and we talked before about how strange sometimes the lineup was. I mean, once again, we said they won 5-0 against San Lorenzo in the league, but they changed the goalkeeper, so they had a 21-year-old goalkeeper. They found a new 17-year-old center back, so they've gone through Thiago Fernandez and Steven, and now they got Elias Diaz, another 17-year-old that they're just kind of rotating through these players, maybe trying to see who might stick, who might fit. But the really interesting one was, of course, Mati Rojas. We maybe forgot Matias Rojas was at Libertad because he'd been out injured. He started that game. And so will he be able to start again tonight? I mean, that could be interesting, I think, because he's got that quality. He's done so well in Argentina. But to Fede's point, it just really feels like is going to be you can't see anything other than a win for Rosario Central because Libertad has been so off the pace the whole season. They're just kind of going through the motions at this point. Let's see what they bring in the Clausura. That's going to be really interesting to see a Libertad not in the Libertadores and in the Clausura having to win to probably qualify because they're not going to qualify this year in the Acumulativo because they're so low on points in this particular season. So they're going to have to go all out in the Clausura. Let's see if they bring in more players or what they try and do. But I think that this particular game, yeah, I can't see them winning. I think it's going to be a home win for Rosario Central.
I agree. I think it's going to be a bridge too far for them as well to get something in this one. And finally, the other team to talk about is the one that I think had a really positive result. Probably the only team with the most positive result, as opposed to Recoleta, Cerro Porteño, because Cerro Porteño went to host Palmeiras at home, and obviously Palmeiras has always been sort of that kryptonite when it comes to Cerro Porteño performances in the Libertadores. And they ended up getting a draw, like we had predicted as well, Ralph. I think it was actually a good prediction on that end, but it was a 1-1 draw. Arias scored the first goal for Palmeiras, only then for Iturbe, but it was called as an own goal from the goalkeeper Carlos Miguel to get a goal for Cerro Porteño. So now Cerro are back in the driving seat, after losing the first game against Sporting Cristal. They ended up beating Junior. They obviously tied Palmeiras. Now they're going off to obviously Junior's team, their game against what's it called? They're off to Colombia to take on Junior over there in Cartagena. It's a big opportunity for Cerro Porteño to really be on track, not on track, but really find their feet again and try to qualify for the round of 16, especially now, obviously, with the Apertura being over. And I think, similar to what Olimpia is doing with putting all their eggs in one basket. I think Cedro's case, they need to bounce back as best as they can, and forget the poor Apertura and go for this sort of achievement to qualify in the Libertadores.
Yeah, well, obviously with that draw as well, Sporting Cristal are actually top of this group, so the
That's
losing
true.
to
Yeah.
Cristal suddenly doesn't seem as crazy. But I think they really need to get something from the game. I think we talked about this when they failed to beat, or when they lost to Sporting Cristal. We said they're gonna have to make up points in a away game somehow, and now it's here in Barranquilla against Junior. They I mean, under Holland, I'm still not like convinced. They've only won twice since he's come in, right? He's been in charge for about 7 games, I think, and they've won twice. They've drawn a lot, and you can see them maybe tying this game again in terms of it's an away game in the Libertadores, bringing back a point they would be happy with. We're still seeing again the switches in players. We're not always sure who might start a game, what's their best. What's their preferred team? Is it Sonora in midfield who started in the defeat against Recoleta? Or does he prefer maybe someone like Morel and being much more defensive? So it's hard to really find what the team is. And also, Vegetia is still not scoring. Jonathan Torres probably plays better when he's on. Big thing is, I guess, Cecilio Dominguez must be back for this game. He served his suspension. So that will be, I think, very important for them as they missed him in those last two Libertadores games. And he's really, when he's been on form, he's been their best player. So I think I don't know. I think they can get away with a draw. I don't think they'll have enough to win, but I think they'll be happy with that, knowing that they've still got the home game against Cristal to come, and with that could be enough to put them through. We're assuming that Cristal don't get a result against Palmeiras in this game week.
Well, guys, this is the hardest one for me, right? Because I think I said it after the first game already. I'm not with this team. I think I thought they were gonna fall off this Libertadores really quickly. They were able to bounce back somehow and maintain themselves. I thought they played against kind of a relaxed Palmeiras, not the best side that I've seen in these last couple of years. Obviously, it's been a long project for them. It's not easy to keep it up, but I mean, looking at it from Cerro Porteño, for this staff, for this new coach, the priority has definitely been try to get everybody healthy again, try to get players that were out most of the year, most of the semester, and every time they came back, they would unfortunately miss the next game because they would get injured again. So that was probably, that was the first task for this coach, more than let's get a team together, let's build it up, let's start, polishing the little details on the team. No, it wasn't up to that situation in Cerro. They really needed to get everybody on board. And a couple of weeks ago, you kind of already felt that the priority is the Libertadores, right? Especially after the results they got in that competition. They feel they can still do something here. So I'm definitely going to be rooting for them. But just like Ralph said, I don't know what to expect. Cecilio messed it up, screwed it up in the first game. Now he's going to probably come back and be a starter. You're definitely going to think, okay, hopefully he can come back and be that star that this team needs. Iturbe hasn't been healthy either. Those are the two guys that I want to see be part of this game and make the difference. Hopefully they both start. But for me, this is the hardest one to predict, Roberto. I really don't know what can happen with this Cerro Porteño. In the game that I saw in Asunción against Junior, they were the better team, but I do think the Colombian side is going to play much better in Barranquilla. And the heat over there, the humidity, oh, you can really feel it. So it's going to be an uncomfortable game, no doubt about it, for the Azulgrana.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna be a tight one, honestly. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect from this one. I'm gonna say a draw. Ralph?
Yeah, I think the same. I think it'll be a draw.
Fede?
I want them to win, but I already let my hand go from this team. I am not with this team anymore, so I'm gonna go for a win from Junior Barranquilla. I think they're gonna lose this one, and then they might actually come back and hopefully they end up falling in Sudamericana. But I just see them losing this game in Barranquilla.
Yeah, that'll be a tough one because obviously up Almeida's away, which is very tough for any team, let alone Cerro. And then they finish it off against Sporting Cristal, which could be the only game that could give them their safety, especially if it's a Cristal side that have already qualified. So no, it's gonna be fun. Obviously, a big week obviously going on with the what's it called? The Apertura finishing. Now it's all the focus on the Libertadores and Sudamericana. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on what's going on with the Paraguayan national team coming up. Obviously, I guess we'll close it on that last one actually before we go. We have some time here, but I guess we'll close it off. But what do you guys think of obviously Paraguay will be playing a friendly, a final game before they head off to the United States. They obviously will take on Nicaragua on June 5th, and that will be exactly 1 week before they take on the US in the first game at the World Cup. It's a weird one. Paraguay don't typically do, I was going in through some research as a Fede of like farewells, and they don't do it. They don't do farewells at World Cups. They just go into whatever continent they have to be in to prepare, and then they just go straight to the World Cup. It was either 98, 02, 06, 10, but in 26, it's a weird one, especially given the fact that it's coming off. Obviously, all the teams are going to really need to be in their camps by the beginning of June because the last day of the Champions League is May 30th. And so yeah, I think it's an interesting one to really go into this to you get this sort of game. And I think, Ralph made up a good point in one of our group chats that we're in. It's like I think Alfaro wants this sort of game to be able to feel the momentum of the crowd, the love of the crowd, and to bring in all that energy getting into the World Cup, and training for camp. And, I think because of the way that the group is being set up, that it's very close. Also, the training camp as well. They don't travel far like we had talked about. So, the only big travel they're gonna do is when they leave Paraguay and head to the United States, and then until then, the only big travel they'll do will depend on how well they do in their group. So, but nevertheless, this game. I mean, yeah, it's obviously not the biggest rival in comparison to what they had with Greece and Morocco and the friendlies before that after they qualified for the World Cup with Japan, South Korea, USA, and Mexico. But it's at least something to feel as if though the players can feel a bit more relaxed. They can, impress, get a big win, I would say, and then use that to head to the World Cup and try to conquer the world, basically.
Well, guys, I'm actually really happy about this game. I think this is just what our coach wanted. He said it right after the last qualifiers. I want the fans to have the opportunity to see the team one last time before the World Cup. And just like you mentioned, Roberto, doesn't usually happen. But I think it just needs to be a party, right? And get everybody together, have the opportunity to hopefully not get anybody injured either. Hopefully Nicaragua understands that. They need to go on a slow pace, even though we are going to be tested somehow. And we might even see the starting 11 already in that friendly. So it could be very interesting in that sense also, but just to give the guys the love, just to give them that farewell, just to give them that pat in the back right before they go to the World Cup, where we know most of the games are going to feel like they're the away team. I think it's going to be a very interesting, special moment. And it actually might even draw the fans closer to this team right before the World Cup. Everybody's going to be watching it at home and on TV in different places here. So it could be that bond that we just need right before the World Cup also.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a more an emotional game than say an actual like what can we learn from tactically or on the pitch is very much because it's been so long since they qualified and there's been all these friendlies away. I think Alfaro wants to like recapture that moment that we had when we qualified against Ecuador and so bring some of that back to the team to surround them. And we also know that Paraguay there's hardly any tickets sold for the games. I think it was the embassy, either the Paraguayan embassy here or the US embassy in Paraguay, just said people aren't even applying for visas. Like nobody's going. We know this is going to be a big issue across the World Cup, but especially with a smaller country and a smaller team like Paraguay, there just won't be that many fans in the stadium. So I think he wants to do something here to give them that big emotional push and that send off before heading to the US.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think certainly as we get closer and we obviously get the final squads and obviously we'll see the team in the country, it's like who doesn't want that final motivation before going into the World Cup for the first time in 16 years? No, I think it's going to be exciting. And as always, as we cover it here on Guarani Vision, we will cover it as we always do with the World Cup coming very, very soon and everything else going on in Paraguayan football. Also, I want to send a shout out to Michael Talks Football for mentioning us. He was very gracious enough to interview me to talk about Paraguay and at the World Cup, and obviously mentioned us on YouTube. So thank you, Michael, for the special shout out as we close out another great episode for myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hanna. Thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.